I just did my Q&A video to celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers, which I still can't believe and I'll never be able to say thank you enough for. But the first question that I covered there was about the Thanos snap, and it got me thinking about justification and motives. The goal of these episodes on Thursday is to help people think better. But one of the biggest blind spots I think so many of us are capable of having is assuming that we're the good guy, that we're on the right side of history, that even when we mess up, we still had some end motive that made up for it. Because, for the most part, every villain believes that they're actually the hero, or at least not the villain. In the Thanos example, he thought he was saving half the world. Torquemada thought that he was saving souls during the Inquisition. Even slave owners justified what they did in this sick, we are helping to civilize an uncivilized people. Now, those are pretty extreme examples, but even at a lower, more detailed and personal level, I think many of us are capable of doing this. And so I put together 7 questions that we're going to go through today that can help us identify, are we the villain? This is not an episode about shame. It is an episode about self-awareness. So let's dive into question 1. But before we do, once again, promoting the Mindshift merch here. This is the second of 3 t-shirt options, plus we have a mug and a cap. If you'd like to support the channel, this is a new and fun way to do so. If you scroll down, you'll see the store. I also have a link in the description, but let's dive in. The first question here is, how would your worst critic describe you? Now, that doesn't mean you need to believe it. You don't need to own that and wear it and change your whole life because of it. But it's a unique opportunity to kind of hold up a mirror to see from a different angle that you otherwise wouldn't if you're not actively looking for it. Or you can just start a YouTube channel and then people every single day can tell you all of the worst things they think about you. But then you guys come flooding in with so many compliments. It's a nice balance, but I do get to hear and see what my worst critics think of me, and it's helpful. It's grounding. If you don't take it too personally, it can be a good activation for some small amount of change. The ancient cynics were amazing at this. It was Diogenes that had this concept of shameless truth-telling, using offense on purpose to expose hypocrisy. The point wasn't cruelty, it was an unmasking of sorts. And it's a weird and hard balance to strike. Even when I do my Tuesday reaction videos, I'm always wondering where that perfect line is. From Cooley, we have the concept of the looking glass self, that identity is formed through reflected appraisals. How we believe others see us ends up creating who we are. But again, if we're not considering not only what the best of people think of us, but the worst, are we forming a true identity? And by the way, most of us know this. We don't have to talk about the worst YouTube commenter to talk about our worst critic. You might have that one friend in your life who is always just telling you when that outfit doesn't work or when you've gained too much weight. Because often we need others to point out traits to us that we cannot see in ourselves. Our brain has so many blind spots and biases. Again, none of this is an endorsement, by the way, to be an asshole. That's not the point. One of these biases, by the way, is called the self-serving bias. We explain our faults away very easily. It's very situational. Well, you didn't have all the information. I do. I know that I said that, but it's only because of this, and this. But you don't apply that. You can't apply that when you critique and criticize others. When you're talking about someone else's fault, it's their fault and completely, no excuses. So that's not fair to them, but also when they do it back to you, maybe it averages out that own self-serving bias. Psychology also has another term here that's interesting. It's the illusion of asymmetric insight, essentially saying we think we get others more than they get us. So as someone who has had to take a lot of criticism over the last few years that I wasn't getting before, I've learned how to think about it differently, and I want to share this with you. Criticism is data about your impact, not your intention. And so many of us take that wrong. We hear critique, we hear feedback that we don't like, and we absorb it to the self at the deepest level. Oh no, am I a bad person? Am I meaning to do bad? Am I just wrong? Is there something broken inside? No, you might be a great person with wonderful intentions, but hey, listen to some of this feedback because it's about the impact. So maybe there's a disconnect between your intent and your impact. And that can just look like learning to do something better, a missing skill. So with that understanding, your worst critic is useful if you can separate the signal from the noise. Take everything with a grain of salt, as they say, but still take it. So again, it's a fine line and it needs a lot of nuance, but dismissing all of your critics as just haters is something that we see so clearly as dumb in others, but are we applying it to ourselves? If your personal enemy wrote your obituary, what would it say? Would there be any truth in it? What would you want it to say instead? And this isn't about pleasing every hater or anything like that. Again, please hear the nuance, but it's just a thought experiment to get you to start considering things you might not have wanted to look at closely. And again, the whole point of this particular video is how we can make sure that through our own bias and blind spots, we're not slowly becoming the villain, even at a very small local level. The second question is this: if everyone lived exactly as you do, would the world be a better or worse place? I love this question. It is such a gut check to the highest degree. Do I want my family, my children, my neighbors, my society, the world at large to act as I do? And you might be saying to yourself, like I am right now, yes to many things, but oh no to a few others. That wouldn't be good en masse. And yeah, everyone has their part to play and we all need to be different. But generally speaking, that second part, that moment of doubt where you're like, I don't know if that would be good. Maybe that's something you can look at. Your habits scale. Imagine 8 billion copies of you. What is the state of the world now? What if everyone procrastinated at the same level that you do? Would the world get more efficient or would it grind to a halt? What if everyone matched your generosity? Would poverty in the world shrink? Or would it explode? You can see maybe why this is one of my favorite questions. It really just forces you to be so utterly honest with where you can improve. Remember, this is not about shame. It's about self-awareness. I'm going to keep saying that. And I think this way too much. Some of it is because I'm so interested in moral philosophy and you get into practical ethics and all of a sudden you think, oh man, that receipt did blow out of my hand as I walked out of the grocery store. It's no big deal. But what if everybody did that? What if everyone thinks the same way? Now it's 8 billion pieces of trash flying around the globe. And then what if we all do it again the next week? And pretty soon you do get yourself in a tight squeeze where it can be unhealthy trying to achieve a certain level of perfection, but I'd rather err on doing more good than less good and excusing myself out of things simply because I'm focused on a smaller scale than a larger scale. There's a term by Hardin, the tragedy of the commons. I think we'll make our own Thursday episode about it. But it does show how these small, selfish actions compound, eventually leading to some kind of collective ruin. So the main question you can be asking yourself, would my daily choices sustain or sink a civilization? And you know, it's really funny. As I do this, I'm thinking about how I'm not the one who needs to think about this. It's our politicians that need to think about this. But if I want them to think about it, I need to be the person that's also willing to think about it. See, it all just goes full circle. It's kind of this ultimate personal responsibility before you can put it on to others. The next question is, do your actions match the values you claim? This is just the main question for so many of us in life. Are we hypocrites? This is Aristotle's virtue ethics in action. You are what you repeatedly do. Who cares what you say? Who cares what you claim? Who cares what you promote? If I talk on this channel all the time like I do about nuance, and then I'm not extending that when I have conversations with others or when I do a reaction video or in my personal life, then guess what? I don't have nuance. I just preach nuance. And so many of us that came from religion, one of the main things we hated about it, that might have even been a huge catalyst for us trying to figure out its validity, was its hypocrisy. So if you preach that you have a problem with hypocrites, you can't then turn around and then just be that same hypocrite. And so again, I hope you're seeing this as beneficial. I know it's a weird ground, even the framing of this episode, but I don't want to be the villain in somebody else's story while thinking I'm the hero. And again, can't please everybody, but I'm hoping these gut checks are helping. I've heard it said that your values are not proven by your words, but by two things: your bank account and your calendar. Bank statement might be a better term. I might have messed that up. Where are you putting your resources? And your main resources are going to be your time, calendar, and your money. Bank statement. Where so many of us get this wrong is that we overvalue motive or aspiration, that we equate that as the same thing with action or an end result. Oh, I value health. Well, that doesn't mean as much if your habits betray you. If your DoorDash order looks like some of mine have sometimes, then maybe that's not something I value. Or maybe I do value it, but not enough to create the change necessary. Or maybe I really value it and I don't understand why my actions don't follow. Good. look into that. What's getting in the way? Again, this should all be serving you. And again, it's so easy to recognize this in others, but can we see it in ourselves that clearly? Are we even trying to? Think about it this way, and then we'll move on. If a complete stranger, a total outsider, learned about you, observed you only through your actual behavior, they never heard you speak, they never saw what you wrote, they don't know the inner workings of your mind, it's just, this is what this person does for a week, what would they assume your values are? It can be quite the convicting thought experiment. Here's another question that fits in. It's kind of just a reframing. Are you the hero of your story only because you're the one telling it? Historians call this the winner's narrative. Those in power call themselves the liberators and not the oppressors. Colonizers write the textbook of progress instead of conquest. Religious texts called genocides and massacres and slavery holy victories and necessities to justify an end goal. So even in personal conflict, are you the one labeling yourself as reasonable and the other as irrational? Do you think maybe they're doing the same thing in their story? Are you fighting to see what the truth of it is instead of telling yourself the version that makes you feel best? It's kind of unfair. We get to be both the script writer and the protagonist in our own film. Of course, we're going to come out looking good, but is that just a narrative we're writing? Or is it reality? So just ask yourself, if somebody else wrote your story, would you still end up looking like the hero that you are when you tell it? By the way, I'm not saying I have all this figured out. I'm not saying that I always think about all this stuff all the time and am perfect or anything like that. But I do love this kind of thinking. I also hate this kind of thinking, because if you're anything like me, even so far in this video, you might have some things you've already noticed that you want to start changing. And I think that's great, but it's a pain point, right? So I sympathize, but I think it's useful. And again, going back to what I want the other 8 billion people on this planet to be doing, whatever the thing I'm preaching is, this would be yes. Can you imagine if everyone with utter sincerity considered just some of these things that we've already talked about today and were willing to make 1 or 2 changes based off them? I know it sounds naive, but if you're not willing to do it, why would you expect that they should? Here's a good question, and it's simple. It doesn't need a lot of explaining. When was the last time you excused something in yourself that you condemn in others? I kind of mentioned this in point 1, but it's known as the actor-observer bias, meaning we judge others by their character, but we judge ourselves by circumstance. That's not fair. And it can do 2 things, right? Ideally, if we're here thinking good about ourselves, judging someone else poorly, and we take this into consideration, can we give them a bit more lenience, knowing we do the same thing, and maybe bring ourselves down a few notches from, again, that positive story we're telling? This equals connection, communication, empathy, and real change. This becomes in-group, out-group, judgmental, harsh, destructive. I mentioned this the other day when I was talking about driving. Oh, they're just being reckless, but when I speed, I'm in a hurry and for good reason. Oof, maybe I shouldn't be speeding. Maybe my reason wasn't that good. Maybe that guy was thinking like I did. Maybe he has a good reason. Now we're a lot closer. I used to play a lot of pickup basketball, and in one-on-one pickup basketball, you'll often be responsible for calling your own fouls, and it never ceased to amaze me how many people had no problem calling foul after foul after foul when they were on offense, only to then when they are on defense get surprised and throw a fit every time the other person did. You would just say to yourself, how can you not see? And it's a great lesson for children too. You know, I have 2 wonderful kids and they love each other truly, and they treat each other really, really well. But half of the fights they do have is just because one of them is being inconsistent with a standard. Oh, that's mine. I want it back right now. Okay, if that's the rule, then when you're playing with something your sister wants, if it's actually hers and she asks for it back, you need to give it back. Yeah, but no, I just got it. She wasn't even using it. Or we can have a better rule. We always share. Or we can find some nuance. Okay, if it's yours and someone else is playing with it and you want it, first ask yourself, do I only want it because I see them playing with it? And then if you really still want it, the other person still gets 5 minutes to finish up. These things are everywhere. So, what double standard are you quietly living by? That's the real question for this one. 6 is, what if your good intentions are actually causing harm you don't see? Again, I think that I got into that more than I wanted to with the difference between intention and impact. It's not enough just to feel good about something. It's not enough to just have a desire. If you say that what you actually care about is the outcome, and the outcome looks different than the intended desire, are you even trying to account for that? Psychology calls this moral licensing. It's when we believe that our good intentions or good motives give us a free pass to harmful outcomes. But that's so silly when you say it out loud like that. Of course they shouldn't. The outcome is still the outcome. Now, we should take it into consideration. Like, even in a court of law, we will often judge someone's motives in addition to the outcome, but never just their motives. And that's the key difference there. It's actually one that really bugs me when I have people in my life, and again, that means I probably need to look at it for myself, who think that I meant well makes up for whatever it was that happened. I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care, because here's what still happened. Here's what still needs to be addressed. I came from a missionary family. I heard all the justification, all the meaning well of saving their soul. But does that excuse wiping out these indigenous cultures or helping and contributing to that? Do you even care about that other impact? Or are you so wrapped up in your own well-meaning that you're not judging the whole scenario for what it is? And man, we can do this everywhere. You know, one of the things that I struggle with as a parent, I'm kind of the safety-minded one in my family. My wife is pretty chill and cool, and laid back. If our kids are going to have their independence crippled, it's probably going to happen from my overprotection. Even though I know better, I want them to be adventurous. I want them to be able to handle danger and circumstance, to gain a confidence that they can only get via experience. That's a value I have, but sometimes I look at the actual impact versus my intention, and I see that, oh man, maybe I'm just micromanaging every little level here of my children's lives. And the last one's kind of just a good wrap-up question. Without you there to help course correct, if history judged you, would you come out looking noble or harmful? And I say history because so many of our blind spots we can so easily see later on. Hindsight. And also, we've been able to see this happen in real time, especially my generation. Today's normal might be tomorrow's atrocity. And I try to think about that. It's one of the first things that led to some of the changes, and I'm not perfect at this, in how I think about animal suffering. I stopped hunting and fishing just because of this. I've also taken my intake of alcohol way down. Still love me a good cocktail. But these are things that I think 100 or 200 years from now, we're going to look back at like smoking and slavery. Why did we ever do that thing that was so harmful? How could we have ever justified treating sentient creatures so horrifically? Can we get ahead of the curve? Can we get on the right side of history? Not for being called a hero or being called noble, but because in looking through that lens, we can see blind spots we might have otherwise missed or not cared about or thought we were entitled to. I think all the time, which of my current values or actions or intentions will my kids or my grandkids cringe at when they're old enough to think critically about all of this? Which again is framed in kind of a self-serving ego way, but really it's just about what is the impact that I'm going to have? What is the legacy I'm going to leave? Will I have been more a part of the problem or more a part of the solution for a better tomorrow, a better society? And on a positive light, because I've said so many things that I find that I'm doing wrong, one of the things I think I'm doing right is this channel. I hope in 100 or 1,000 years we look back at the harms of the Abrahamic religion and we see it so unbelievably clearly. But right now, I'm a black sheep for this. Right now, I'm the odd man out. I am in the minority. I am one of the few people in my entire society locally that thinks the way I do, that stands up for the truth I try to stand up for, who tries to call out the harm and hypocrisy that I call out. Doesn't make me a saint, doesn't make me perfect, doesn't make me not a hypocrite. But on this one particular value, I went harder than most because I'm that convinced through this kind of introspection and questioning that previously, when I was contributing in the religion and the growth of the religion, I was to some extent being the villain. And I don't want to be. I want to promote health, not harm. I want to promote critical thinking and not blind faith. I want to promote nuance and not dogmatism. I'll keep checking, but for now, here I think I have it right. And it gives me a sense of purpose and an ability to push back and stay strong through all of the crushing pressure around me to reconform. It's not so bad. It's always been this way. What, you think you're better? Oh, Mr. Brandon and his higher moral compass has it all figured out. I'm not claiming that. but I am thinking about it constantly to make sure that I'm contributing more towards health than harm. And that's what so much of this is. That's such a better framing than, are you the villain? But I think the intrigue helps a little bit, getting us prepared to discuss these kinds of things. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know anything you might add. I'll see you Sunday for a new video. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn, my Humanist heroes, Craig, James, Jarrod, Kristi, and Matthew, my Atheist advocates, Aquitar, Caleb, Dan, David, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Julie, Malcom, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of this channel, please consider joining these fine people.